What's up guys? Hi and welcome to Uncle Scott's Kitchen. In this video we are reviewing this guy. This is a Breville Control Freak portable commercial grade induction burner. Does it work? Does it live up to its promises? We're going to go through its pros and cons. We're going to go through high level details, do some real world cooking and figure out if this is a good induction burner for your money. Who knows? Let's jump in and get started. At a high level, what the Control Freak promises is very precise temperature control. You can dial in a certain temperature, whatever you want for whatever you're cooking and whatever cookware you're using. Dial it in to the degree, and this pan temperature sensor here in the middle monitors your pan temperature 20 times per second. And if the pan temperature drops, the thermostat will kick on and will bring it back up. And I give them credit here from a brand perspective. They've taken a term that in intermarital relations might be negative, a control freak, a micromanaging control freak, and turn that into a positive. You can adjust the temperatures in 1 degree increments with this dial from 482 degrees Fahrenheit all the way down to 77. So I think 405 different potential temperatures, and dial in your pan temperature to the degree. Now I've been using this unit for about 4 months now, doing a lot of cooking on it, and I've been using it to kind of review some cookware. And I'm going to give you the biggest pro and the biggest con right here at the top. The pro is, the biggest pro, it actually works. It's really nice to be able to dial in those temperatures. The biggest con is you pay up for that. The biggest con is the price of the unit. These list at $14.99, almost 1,500 bucks for an induction burner. So you got to have a reason to want one, but if you do, it works really well. Now let's dive down into the details. So this is the commercial grade unit. Breville also makes a home version of the Control Freak. I have not used the home version, but some of the differences between the two are the size. The commercial grade unit is a little bit bigger. It has a beefier housing. It is NSF certified. It has buttons and dials. It comes with a big sturdy carrying case, so you could store it in this guy. The home version doesn't have the case. And side note, there's a little extra room in that case. I guess you could put anything in there, towels, utensils, cookbooks, etc. Also, this one comes with a temperature probe, and we'll get into how this works in a little while. It also comes with a little USB key. And if you were in, say, a commercial catering operation and had a bunch of these going, you could get your settings dialed in on one unit, save it to the USB stick, and go and transfer those settings to all the other units. Interestingly, for you nerds out there, this is formatted in FAT32 format, which I thought was fitting for a piece of cooking equipment. Now I mentioned that the commercial unit lists for $14.99. That home unit, save a couple $100, it's $12.99, but it's not quite as beefy and it doesn't come with a carrying case. And for me, if I'm already in for $12.99, what's a couple $100 more? I might as well go with the top end unit. I got mine on sale. They do go on sale occasionally. I paid $11.99 for this guy. So if you wait for the occasional sale, you can save a few bucks there. And as always, for any product I review here on Uncle Scott's Kitchen, pay for this guy with my own money, and that actually hurt a little bit. This is not an $80 carbon steel frying pan. This is some actual real money here. So it's got to deliver. Now, do you guys read instruction manuals? I do, and I always take a little time to read the warnings. Sometimes they're kind of funny and interesting. For the Control Freak, Breville says that you should not use it in a moving vehicle. Probably pretty good advice there. If you've seen the number of potholes here in Utah, definitely would not want to be deep frying while in a moving vehicle. It says to remove and safely discard the packaging before using the unit. Definitely want to take it out of the styrofoam and plastic before you plug it in and do some cooking. A couple other ones are kind of interesting. It says take care when operating the appliance as rings, watches, and other similar objects could get hot. So the magnetic coil, not only does it heat the pan, I guess there's a magnetic field, and it can make your ring get hot. I have not actually had that happen. And this last one is actually kind of important, and I thought fairly interesting. It says to consult a doctor before using the unit if you have a pacemaker. So perhaps that magnetic field in a worst case scenario could interfere with someone's pacemaker, and you definitely don't want to walk into the kitchen and find grandma face down in these scrambled eggs. Okay, let's jump in here with a real world cooking test and deep fry some chicken. This is one area where I really do like the Control Freak. What we're going to do is, instead of using the pan temperature sensor in the middle, we're going to use the temperature probe. And when you plug this in and put this on your pan, I used a 5.5 quart Le Creuset. Put this on the side of the pan, and the temperature probe will take readings from the tip of the probe and use that to control the thermostat of the unit. It's really handy when deep frying. Here I've got some hand-dipped, hand-breaded, boneless, skinless chicken tenders, and I will put a link to a recipe video if you would like to make these for yourself. Then I took peanut oil and filled the Dutch oven up to a third or so full, and inserted the temperature probe and turned the unit on 350 degrees. The Breville brought the oil up to temp, and here's what I really like about deep frying with the Breville. I added my chicken, and of course the oil temperature dropped, but that temperature probe, it sensed the temperature change, and it kicked the thermostat back on, and the Breville rebounded the oil temperature. I didn't have to sit there and fiddle with it. When I deep fry on my gas cooktop and the oil temperature drops, I am perpetually fiddling with the gas and adjusting the temperature. Here I didn't have to worry about it. So a pro here is that the Breville makes deep frying, it's a lot easier, I think, than deep frying on a gas stove. Also, I will point out that it may be a little bit safer as well. When you deep fry using a gas cooktop, there's an open flame. If you add too much food or some wet food and the oil overflows, or you get distracted, there is a little bit more risk there. And I don't think you have that with the Breville. The con is, when you deep fry, there is still a lot of oil or grease and steam going out into the room. So what I did was just put a cutting board on top of my gas burners on my gas stove, and still getting the deep frying underneath the vent hood on that gas stove. And I think these chicken tenders turned out absolutely fantastically. And being a guy raised in Alabama, I have to say a big old tray of delicious fried chicken may have never been happier in my entire life. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of the different types of cookware that work on the Breville and what does not. This is also applicable to other induction ranges, other induction burners, but the induction uses magnets. And the old rule of thumb is always that if a magnet will stick to a piece of cookware, it should work on induction. On the downside, something like my fancy handmade copper, 10-line copper, not going to work on induction. Likewise, something like my beloved Emile Henry ceramic tagine, not going to work on induction. But on the pro side, lots of other fantastic cookware works well. Debouillé carbon steels, other carbon steels, multiply stainless steel. This is a Mauviel. We'll talk about this one in a little bit. That works well. Cast iron, enamel cast iron like Staub and Le Creuset. Those are going to work nicely on the Breville. I compared the Control Freak to my fancy gas stove upstairs. And for a small saucepan, bringing 2 cups of water to a boil, the Breville was faster than the gas stove, significantly, by a couple of minutes. Boiling 8 cups of water in a Le Creuset 5.5 quart enamel cast iron Dutch oven, it was a push. Both almost exactly the same amount of time. Where the gas stove did a better job than the Breville is when I got up to a 9-quart, and I've got a high power, I think it's 25,000 BTU high power gas burner upstairs. I can really crank it up with a wider pan like this. 12 cups of water, came to a boil in a little over 7 minutes on the gas stove. Took twice as long on the Breville. Now, besides pan material, let's talk about pan sizes and what works well on this Breville. A problem with induction burners, and you've probably seen me use this other unit, and I put a piece of tape over the brand name because I have trashed this guy plenty of times before. No need to do that here. But the Breville versus this guy, it's night and day. This one's $100, $150. I am not going to use this guy anymore. Even though it has a big graphic on the top, it has a much smaller coil in the middle. And one of the pros of induction cooking is that it can bring a lot of heat. It can generate heat and bring water up to boil rapidly. On a unit like that, smaller portable, that heat can be concentrated in the middle of the pan, and that can actually warp and damage cookware. Now, the pro here is that the Breville has a wider coil. It also has an intensity setting. You can go low, medium, or fast. So you definitely don't want to blast any of your cookware with that fast setting. I always preheat my pans with the slow. And in about 4 months of cooking on this guy, I have not warped any cookware. Been very careful with my cookware, whereas with the other induction burner, this guy actually would turn pans into spinners. So a bigger coil here. The bad news is you can still get one of those brown spots if you're not careful. Let me show you what happened here when I tried to render a pound of bacon, which is something I can do on my gas cooktop. When I cooked that bacon, the heat was not transferring out quickly in the big, thick, heavy cast iron, and I ended up turning up the temperature and ended up getting one of those brown spots right there in the middle. Now, I asked Breville directly, I emailed them and asked them what the burner coil size is for the Control Freak. They told me they couldn't tell me because it was proprietary information. But I put a ruler down in the Dutch oven in kind of imputing and backing into the coil size. I'm going to say that the coil size on the Breville Control Freak is somewhere around 8 inches. Now, that's very important to know because the dimensions of cookware, according to the manual that work with the Control Freak, the manual says you need a minimum of 4.5 inches of diameter on the bottom of a piece of cookware, all the way out to 10 inches for good heating coverage. If that coil is only 8 inches wide, then if you use a 10-inch piece of cookware, it's going to overhang by 1 inch on either side. What does that mean as far as which pans are going to work well on the Breville or not? This 10-inch pan has a bottom surface area that would make contact of about 7 inches. So plenty of room for a 10-inch frying pan. This 11-inch carbon steel, roughly 8 inches of contact area. So that should work very well. Where it becomes a little bit more of an issue, where there's a little bit of a learning curve, is with 12-inch skillets. For example, this all-clad D5, 12-inch, it's roughly 9 inches of contact area. So if there's an 8-inch coil, it's going to be hanging over at least 1/2 inch on either side. Cooking scrambled eggs. 3 scrambled eggs in a 5-ply all-clad stainless steel. They were non-stick in the middle of the pan, but I noticed out towards the edges, I sloshed some of the eggs actually up the side of the pan, and they kind of stuck up there. And the reason for that is, it's just a difference between gas cooking and induction cooking. If you cook on gas, the flame hits the bottom of the pan and goes up around the edges. The induction, it heats mostly where it makes contact, and then you have to wait for that heat to kind of diffuse through the pan, and it just does not get quite as hot up near the rim of the pan as on other cooktops. So what I did is, that was a 12-inch pan, did another 3 eggs in a 10-inch, same temperature settings, and they worked really well. Got eggs up the side of the pan a little bit and they are not sticking there. So I think the 10-inch pans, the 11 inches are going to be a little bit easier to use, but I still do think the 12s work well. There's just a little bit more of a learning curve with the 12. The first thing you can do is use a multiply pan. For example, this all-clad copper core. It's got copper in the middle. It works on the induction, and this pan is very good at spreading heat. Now, the next thing you can do to help the 12-inch pans is to increase the preheating time. For example, with this Smithy 12-inch carbon steel farmhouse skillet, it's a big, thick, heavy pan. It does not spread heat very rapidly. When you put it on the Breville, it's going to make contact with the pan temperature sensor right here in the middle. And when the Breville heats the pan, it's going to be taking temperature readings from this middle here. The Breville may think that the entire pan is heated, but because carbon steel doesn't spread that heat very rapidly, it really may only be up to temperature right in the middle of the pan. So what I found that worked well is to let the Breville heat the pan and then let the pan remain at temperature for a minute or two before I added any food. And that allowed a little bit of time for that heat to kind of diffuse out through that thicker, heavy metal. Now, this lack of heating up the sides of a pan actually really comes into play when you try to do something like a French omelette. Now, the Breville commercial, their on-site videos, they have a chef who makes a French omelette, but he uses a non-stick skillet, lower temperature, I think 225 degrees, and it's about a 2 or 3 minute relaxed process. There are still a few of us loons out here who use carbon steel skillets and try to make French omelets in kind of the old classic way. You may have seen Julia Child make a French omelet in some of her videos. I watched the old black and white videos, and it is a high temperature, bang, bang, intense process. I think in her video, she went from eggs going into the pan to plating the omelet in about 14 seconds. And yes, I am the nerd who actually counted that up. And with kind of the real deal French omelet, you shake the pan back and forth, you turn the pan up like this, and then kind of roll the egg up, and it kind of slides down this way. But it's very important to have some heat up here in the side of the pan. And you don't really get that on the induction. When you cook a French omelet on a gas stove, you've got the gas flame still under this part of the pan. Then you slide the omelet over and actually roll it out onto a plate. I tried that here on the induction, and while the omelet was non-stick in this part of the pan, once I tilted the pan up, it kind of stuck over here because this part of the pan was much cooler. Also, once you turn a pan up like this on the induction, because it's no longer making contact with the sensor, the unit will shut off. Now, while we're talking eggs here, I want to touch on not only the ability to dial in specific temperatures, but also the ability to create programs and have reproducibility with your cooking results. It really does change the way you cook. So what I do is keep the amount of butter the same, keep the pan the same, and try eggs at different temperatures. And once I find the one that works correctly, then I can create a program. And I can save that, and I put in the name of the pan, and the temperature and the amount of eggs, lock that in, and then the next time I want to cook the eggs, I just put the pan on the burner, select that program, and it brings it up to the correct temperature. It takes the guesswork out of it. You're not using pan temperature thermometers, you're not flicking water, you're not looking at the butter, you're not doing timing. It really, really takes the guesswork out of cooking eggs. And once I got my preheating technique dialed in, I've been cooking a bunch of eggs on this Breville, and I think it works really well for eggs, even in the 12-inch skillets. Fried eggs, scrambled eggs work really well. It's just not going to work with French omelets or any other food where you need to cook a food up the sides of a frying pan, because just due to the nature of induction cooking, it's going to heat better above the coil. You're going to get the cooking surface heated nicely, but it's not going to heat the pan up to the rim quite as well or evenly as a gas stove might. Now, when it comes to gas cooktops versus induction, this has been kind of a controversial subject, especially around Uncle Scott's Kitchen for the last couple of years, mainly because there was a movement to ban gas stoves and mandate that people go to inductions. And I've always been against that, but I am not against the induction technology itself. If you want to use induction, have at it. Just don't tell other people that they can't use a gas cooktop if they want to. This Breville, I think, is better than my gas stove at certain tasks, but I think the gas stove is better than the Breville at others. Boiling small quantities of liquid, which I might do, for example, for cooking my son cheese grits for school in the morning, or oatmeal. Boiling a cup or two of water, the Breville is faster and I think better. For dialing in a specific temperature for scrambled eggs or fried eggs, I think the Breville is better and easier than the gas cooktop. For a real deal French omelette, I like the gas better because it does a better job at heating the entire pan. For searing meat, for example, I like the gas better there because I can get carbon steel skillet 550 degrees. I can't do that on the Breville. What I would like to have, and I don't know if anyone is working on this, is a range that's a combo. I would like to have some gas burners and then one or two that have the Control Freak features in there. And these are even different than other induction ranges. Lots of other inductions, you're still just going from 1 to 10 in settings, and you're still trying to figure out low, medium, medium, high, and high. This is much more precise down to the degree, and I really do like that. Now at the top of the video, I gave out the biggest pro and con. The biggest pro is that the unit works very, very well. This Control Freak does exactly what it promises to do, dialing in and maintaining specific temperatures. And it takes a lot of the guesswork out of cooking, especially with cooking things like eggs. I really do like it for that. It also helps me review cookware on different cooktops and provide better content for you guys. The con, the downside to the guy is the price. $1,500 list for this guy. Is that a bargain or not? For $1,500, I could get a new TV, a PlayStation 5, a couple of gallons of really good scotch, and take my wife out to dinner. So there's a lot you can do with $1,500 besides buy an induction burner. However, they always say don't count another person's money. If you have a need for a commercial grade, very precise, very high end, very high quality, portable induction burner, this Breville is fantastic, and I give it a thumbs up. Now, if you found this video helpful and enjoyable and decide to get one of these for yourself, a very nice thing to do is use the old affiliate shopping link below. Really helps to defray the cost of making these videos, especially helps to defray paying $1,200 for this guy out of my own pocket. Make sure you leave your questions, comments, and feedback below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time on Uncle Scott's Kitchen.